So there are a lot of different ways we can look at fashion, and there are a lot of different ways we can theorize and conceptualize fashion. There's a whole body of academic discourse from a variety of fields surrounding fashion and providing different lenses through which to view fashion. Like each of these fields approach fashion as if with a certain pair of glasses over their eyes that tint it and frame it in a certain ways that emphasize certain aspects of that phenomenon of fashion or a fashion item and de-emphasize others depending on the values of that academic field. So what they like to emphasize and look for in whatever they're studying. It's a multidisciplinary body of literature with each discipline proposing their own ideas and views of what fashion is, how it functions, why it exists, and just different ways of explaining it, different lexicons and terminologies, and different positions from which to approach this phenomenon of fashion, which I think we can start to settle on that it is a social phenomenon. The fact that none of the disciplines listed here are natural sciences or the hard scientific academic disciplines. And this multidisciplinary body of academic knowledge allows us to look at fashion in terms of the history of fashion, or the sociology surrounding fashion, or the anthropology of fashions of cultures in the past, or the economics of fashion, or the marketing of fashion, or the psychology of fashion. So it's not just one academic discipline that studies fashion. And like I said, each discipline approaches the topic of fashion from a different perspective, which produces multiple competing, sometimes contradicting sets of ideas and conceptual frameworks through which fashion is defined and analyzed and explained, so that an economics approach to fashion is going to be radically different from an arts history approach to fashion, or a social history approach to fashion, or a fine arts approach, or a sociological approach, or an anthropological approach. They all have different things in consideration. Like the psychology approach is obviously going to take the individual's mind into a lot more consideration than the sociology approach will take a lot more the collective social context into consideration. And these are just the formal theories regarding fashion. The Bernard reading brings up a good point in that as soon as you make a claim about a fashion item saying, that shirt is girly or retro, like, aren't you then engaging in informal fashion theory where, just like these disciplines, you are assigning a meaning to that piece of fashion, and you are defining it as girly or retro and analyzing it as such and explaining it as such. So as soon as we pass judgment or say anything about something we or someone else are wearing, we're engaging in informal fashion theory. We're theorists who are wearing our own pair of glasses that are framing what we're seeing in a certain way so that it emphasizes certain aspects of the item and potentially de-emphasizes others. When you call an item, a fashion item, girly, you're employing all these preconceptions and pre-existing knowledge about gender. Or when you call something retro, you're imbuing your own value judgments regarding history and the desirability or the undesirability of history in that sense, as they manifest in that piece of fashion that you're looking at and informally theorizing on. We are arguably performing fashion theory as soon as we don something ourselves and walk out the door. So we need a variety of takes on fashion as are presented by all the various disciplines formally and all the various experiences informally, because fashion isn't just one set thing. It's not just one fixed thing that can only be looked at from one perspective, just like the body that we were talking about earlier. Fashion is a multifaceted phenomenon, so that if you only approach it from one perspective, you're going to get a very partial glimpse, an incomplete snapshot, an incomplete perspective on what fashion is that doesn't capture all of the multifaceted aspects of it. So in order for you to get a more comprehensive view of what fashion is, you need to combine those lenses and approach it from different angles and different disciplines, so that you're not just asking one type of question, like what are the economic aspects of this piece of fashion, or what are the psychological aspects, because limited questions will yield limited answers. So just like the body, just as all phenomena that we'll be discussing in this course, social and cultural phenomena, fashion can't merely be imprisoned in one meaning. It constantly eludes meaning, and it constantly escapes from the categories and boxes that a rational analysis tries to pack it into. So that as soon as you think you can explain fashion from one rational perspective, a case will come along that completely disproves that. So if you look at it from the economics perspective and define conclusively that name brand fashion items will have a higher value, then something will come along in fashion like the no-name brand, which suddenly became very fashionable, that just defies the meaning that you tried to rationally confine it as, requiring us to deploy a variety, an array of fashion theories to get a more comprehensive view of all the human and cultural elements that go into it.